Yeah,
All right, cool.
Good. Yep.
Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Welcome to Helping Others Level Up, how Minecraft makes a difference in hospitals. Thank you, first off, for spending part of your MINECON weekend with us. We have a pretty fun hour in store. We're going to be talking about video games in the hospital environment, how games, specifically Minecraft, are used for therapeutic and recreational purposes. And we've just got a bunch of fun stories to share with you guys and kind of show you like the difference that Minecraft has been making for a lot of kids that are going through some pretty trying times in life, but thankfully Minecraft is able to help uplift some spirits. So we're going to do some quick introductions, tell you a little bit about the programs we've been implementing in the hospital, then kind of get into some Minecraft specifics, and then kind of tie back around to some various ways that you can maybe support your own local hospital. So Nate, if you want to introduce yourself real quick, and then I'll introduce myself and we'll take it from there.
So my name is Nate Aschenbach. I'm from Game Start School. What we do is we teach kids how to create their own video games, mods, digital art, animation, all kinds of stuff like that. We have our own classes that we run in our space, our physical space, summer camps and stuff like that, but the bulk of what we do is outreach with other after-school programs in our area. So we're in sort of southern Michigan, southeast Michigan. So we touch a lot of school systems in Detroit, as well as kind of the areas around Ann Arbor. We also work with at-risk youth in juvenile detention centers. We've got programs that run there. A program called Inspire Her to Code that's focused on getting young women involved in computer science careers. And then as of the past probably year and a half, 2 years, we've been working alongside Gamers Outreach and some other really awesome folks at Mott Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
So Nate kind of segued into Gamers Outreach. So my name is Zach Weigel. I'm the founder of a charity organization in the video game industry called Gamers Outreach. We work to provide recreation and therapy to kids in hospitals through video games. We got started in Ann Arbor, Michigan back in like 2008, 2009. Originally, we just wanted to deliver some video games to our local children's hospital, which is Mott Children's Hospital out in Ann Arbor. It's kind of part of the University of Michigan health system. So if you're not familiar with Michigan, Ann Arbor is kind of like the college town of the Midwest. You probably hear Go Blue quite frequently for Michigan transplants who come out to California because we get sick of the winters, and it's pretty tough living out there in December. But we started working with Mott Children's Hospital and just kind of noticed that there were a lot of kids who were unable to access games that were being donated to the hospital. So oftentimes video games would maybe get stuck in a playroom, which on one hand was a good thing. Oftentimes in the hospital environment, healthcare professionals will kind of look to playrooms as a way to incentivize kids to start moving around, to kind of get out of bed, especially if they need to go through some type of therapy. However, oftentimes there are a number of kids throughout the hospital that can't get to those playrooms for whatever reason. Maybe they've had a really big surgery, maybe they've had an organ transplant or something crazy like that, or maybe they're not necessarily staying overnight in the hospital, but they come in for dialysis or chemotherapy. So when they are in the hospital, they're there for like 5-6 hours at a time, multiple times a week. So I'll show you a picture here. Our main project as a charity is called Project Go-Kart. And we started building these portable video game kiosks, originally just kind of as a one-off initiative for our local hospital. We saw that hospital staff, it was often kind of difficult for them to take games that they had and put them in rooms specifically for kids in given periods of time. So we wanted to create a tool that would make all that stuff secure, accessible, and mobile in the hospital environment. So anytime a hospital gets games, they can rely on the go-kart as a way to help transport that stuff around. So we kind of think of ourselves as platform builders. We're really just trying to make sure that a lot of the efforts and the initiatives that exist in the gaming industry that we're able to support, and the hospitals are able to have tools that make the stuff kind of accessible. So this started as a one-off project. Fast forward a number of years, we're now in about 20 different hospitals around the country. And so we've been building these things kind of over and over and over again, and we're kind of building a new version of our gaming cart right now. And I'll talk about that a little bit towards the end. Minecraft is by far the most popular game in the hospital environment. And part of the reason we wanted to come here today is to kind of share that with you guys and kind of illustrate some of the cool things that are going on. So first thing, before we dive into some of the Minecraft stuff, we have to give a shout out. This is a guy named JJ Bouchard. JJ is a child life specialist at Mott Children's Hospital. He was not able to join us today. His daughter has a birthday this weekend, so he had an excuse to miss working with us, but we wanted to give him a little bit of flack for not being here. But JJ has connected a lot of dots for Nate and I. Nate's group, Game Start, was working in Ann Arbor, as Nate said, kind of running a lot of educational programs. And when we connected, our curiosity in working with Nate was, how can we bring some of the stuff that you're doing into the hospital environment? So Nate will kind of talk about that a lot in a little bit. Aside from the go-karts, every year Gamers Outreach runs a video game tournament called Gamers for Giving. It's basically a big LAN party. So people come in with their own computers, their own Xbox consoles. We'll rent out like a basketball stadium, and people play video games for the whole weekend. And everyone's entry fees and the donations we receive from streams online help to support us building these gaming carts for hospitals around the country. So this kind of leads into Minecraft. In the hospital environment, like I just said, Minecraft is the most requested game by far. A lot of kids are looking to Minecraft both for entertainment, but also as a way to kind of take some control back into a situation where maybe sometimes they don't really have access or aren't very mobile. And so Minecraft kind of becomes this digital playground where they're not able to kind of create and build things, but they're also able to connect with friends who might not be in the hospital environment, through online play. One of the other things that's kind of happened through Minecraft is that, oddly enough, it can be very empowering for patients who oftentimes aren't in positions where they have authority over various situations. So you can imagine every single day, maybe a nurse is coming in or doctor's coming in and telling a patient, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z, you need to make sure that you're eating properly, or whatever it is. Well, Minecraft kind of offers kids an opportunity to say, hey, I'm the creator, I get to make this world. And if staff or volunteers are looking to play games with kids, it's a chance for them to kind of be in the driver's seat, which doesn't happen very often. So I think as gamers, it's really easy for us to assume, clearly video games are entertaining, and certainly from just a general perspective of having fun, there's value there for kids to be able to have these in the hospital environment. But what we're finding is that oftentimes the games actually help with the healthcare process. We had an instance where a child had a burn on his arm, and every few days, nurses had to come in and change out his bandages. And nobody likes taking off a Band-Aid, let alone like a whole thing, a dressing on your arm. And so this kid was getting really anxious about it. And it got to a point where like 6 different nurses had to hold him down just to complete this process. Well, somebody found out he liked playing video games. They wheeled in a go-kart and let him play for 30 minutes prior to this process happening. And this kid was like totally locked into the game, didn't really care about what was about to happen. And by the time the nurse came through, she said, hey, you know what? You can keep playing the game. Let me hold one end of the controller. You hold the other. And another nurse will just come by and take care of your arm real quick. So kind of kept it low key. This kid didn't make a fuss at all. It only took 2 nurses to do the job instead of 6. And arguably, this child had a better healthcare experience because of it. And probably from the perspective of the nurses, there's maybe an economic argument to be made, because now instead of these 6 nurses having to be with 1 patient, it only takes 2, and the other 4 can kind of go around and make sure that the other kids are doing okay. So I'll just go through some quick examples, and I'll throw it over to Nate, so I'm not talking your guys' ears off. But we put the go-karts in a variety of situations. This is actually a picture from Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And the go-kart exists in their neurology unit. So if kids have some type of head injury, and that can be a whole spectrum of things, oftentimes they're hooked into various machines that can't move around, right? Because they have to be monitored and whatever else is sort of going on. So child life specialists and nurses, basically staff members in the hospital that are responsible for the well-being of patients, they'll use the go-karts as a tool to make sure that these games are accessible and that kids can play them. This is actually a photo from a dedication that we hosted. You can see the kid is playing Minecraft. It might be kind of hard to see on the screen, but his mom was sitting there, and it was the first time that he was able to kind of move out of his room in a while. It was also the first day that we delivered the go-kart, but his mom was like so excited to see him playing a game and so that he hadn't been this happy in a while. So it's just really amazing as a gamer, you know, to see the impact that sort of our passion can have in these environments and the difference it makes for a lot of the kids. I'm going to combine the worlds of Microsoft here. The guy on the right is a Halo player named Strongside, who is very involved with the Halo community and actually kind of helps shoutcast and host some major Halo tournaments that Microsoft produces. But of course, in the background, you can see Minecraft is present, and Strongside's here sharing a controller with a patient from a go-kart that he was able to deliver through a fundraiser that he hosted. So it was interesting. We were actually meeting with the Minecraft team earlier this year, and I had a bunch of pictures of the go-karts, and just coincidentally, Minecraft somehow always happened to be in the background. And it wasn't really intentional. It just so happened that all the kids are really just playing Minecraft, and so it's a super fun game that the kids enjoy. I want to bring your attention also to one other thing, and I'll hand it over to Nate. We have this other initiative called Player 2, and we've been inviting video game enthusiasts into the hospital environment to play games with the kids and basically become digital activity managers. So oftentimes when games are delivered to a hospital, sometimes the hospital staff need help managing all the equipment. The comparison I kind of give people that I think is a little more easy to read into is, imagine if you went to a college and donated like 100 computers. A lot of those computers would probably sit still, even if they would be beneficial to the student body, even if it's something that the college could rely on for various educational purposes, until somebody is able to deploy that equipment, set up a way to manage it all. Sometimes it'll just sit for a period of time. And we've kind of discovered this among all the hospitals we work. If on one end of the spectrum, the go-karts are kind of a way to like help make sure games are mobile. But at the other end of the spectrum, sometimes we have hospital staff members that aren't necessarily super well acquainted with games. They know that kids play them, but maybe they don't play often themselves. Maybe a small tech issue arises where an HDMI cord gets unplugged and no one really knows how to fix the Xbox. So this has been an opportunity for gamers to just come into the hospital environment and apply their knowledge as gamers in a way that supports the staff, but also helps the kids. Minecraft has been a really big connecting platform for a lot of the volunteers. Actually, the volunteer pictured here had a heart disease growing up, and was just telling me a story a few months ago where he had connected with a patient through Minecraft. So there was a patient who was hospitalized for a long period of time. This particular child enjoyed playing Minecraft, and they would play the game together. And through playing the game, this kid started opening up about some of the anxiety he had regarding his symptoms. But coincidentally, our volunteer had the same disease growing up and was able to say to him, hey, you know what, there's a light at the end of this tunnel. Everything you're going through is totally normal. I've been there myself. And not only was it kind of relieving for the patient to hear this, but his parents were in the room as well. And Minecraft was able to kind of help facilitate not only kind of a play session, but also this conversation. A lot of people forget that like kids have a hard time kind of expressing themselves as directly as we do as adults, just because we're a little more, we've had a little more years of social experience to do so. But oftentimes play becomes a way for doctors and volunteers to interact with kids and get them talking just about things that are going on, whether that's symptoms or just general procedures in the hospital. So that's just a quick overview of Gamers Outreach and some of the work we've been doing, how Minecraft has played a part. Nate's going to be able to speak to what GameStart has been doing, which is a different organization, but we partner up quite a bit out in Ann Arbor and are hoping to partner up more in some of the other hospitals we work with. But Nate's got a number of cool stories to share and how they transitioned into the hospital environment.
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned, GameStart, it started as a school, and that's still a good bulk of what we do on a daily basis. But within that school, we were able to spend a lot of time to figure out how Minecraft works from the perspective of trying to achieve certain learning outcomes. So we mostly focus on things like learning how to program computers using different programming languages or creating digital artwork and stuff like that. But once we got paired up with the folks in the hospital, we were able to take some of that same modding platform stuff that we had built already and kind of transition it to something that was more appropriate to the hospital. So this is just a picture here of our typical classroom. This is some of the computer code that our students might write when they're working with our mod. So the programmers in the audience will recognize that this is Python code here. And this is based on, if any of you ever had a chance to try the Raspberry Pi version of Minecraft. This is very similar to that, but we created a mod for the retail version that supported a few extra features. So just to kind of give you a sense that this was built by a 6th grader over the course of a year of kind of learning how to do this stuff. So it's pretty serious. And this is stuff that we do bedside with the patients in the hospital. So we'll bring in laptops and we'll play the PC version of the game. And we'll teach kids how to create spigot mods, forge mods, and this is typically kind of our entry point for them. For the younger kids, we'll have an experience that's sort of like connecting puzzle pieces together. It's based on Google's Blockly technology. So, and just to say, all of this stuff is totally open source, and we host it on our webpage. So if you guys are interested to download it and try it out, you know, just to have fun with it, or if you think that you might know somebody around who would want to use it in an after-school program or something, just let us know, and we're more than happy to share. The other venue that we teach with Minecraft in is through a couple different kind of community outreach programs, some of them at juvenile detention centers, some of them at community centers around the area. And one of the things that was really interesting to us was that even for groups of kids who didn't necessarily play a lot of Minecraft on their own, right? These kids, even if they don't know the rules of Minecraft and how it works, and you know they're not playing it regularly with their friends, they still really respond well to it as a learning tool. And so this is something that you know we've been working really hard on. We also do birthday parties and celebrations and things. So these are some of the cupcakes used for that. So fast forward to the hospital work that we've been doing. Minecraft has been for sure the #1 hit for anything that we do, and we've been doing a lot with the virtual reality version on the Oculus Rift lately. The really important thing about the virtual reality version is that much more than any other, it really allows you to kind of escape your current environment, right? So if you have to imagine that you're either in isolation and for either your own protection or just because you're going through some particular form of therapy or treatment, and you're not able to necessarily get out into the playrooms and things like this. Being able to put on a headset and really kind of transport yourself is a really, really big deal. So I brought along just a few quick clips of some of our patients that we work with, because I wanted to give you a sense of kind of how it feels. So he's playing the virtual reality version of Minecraft right now. This particular patient is only able to use one hand, so he's had a decent amount of practice kind of navigating and building and jumping with his right hand. I don't know if we have the audio for these or not, but I'm hoping that it'll
come down here, I'm gonna beat you up.
So this is another rig that we built based on the Oculus version of Minecraft. So this is for a particular patient that as part of his physical therapy, he needs to kind of bend and stretch in particular ways. This is a very kind of painful, repetitive, boring process. And so what we were able to do is we were able to kind of take some augmentation for the controls and have either myself or JJ or one of the other volunteers that was present that day do the bulk of kind of navigating and moving around in the world. And this patient was able to look with his head in the Oculus Rift to sort of decide what blocks he wanted to break or place. And then when he was ready, he would be able to reach out and press one of these buttons that was positioned by the physical therapist so that he could get his exercise in. And this was a much easier way for him to kind of go through that process. Just another couple videos here that I wanted to share.
Well, I'm recording now, so I heard you say when you were playing the game that your leg didn't hurt quite as much when you were playing the game. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I wasn't really focusing on it.
You wasn't focusing on it, but it was hurting beforehand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was playing the game, it didn't hurt as much.
Cool. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the next patient here is actually, he was really excited to come and try the Oculus because we're only able to be there, certain times of the week. And he knew that this was something that he wanted to do, but he had some other procedures going on, and so there's kind of the scheduling, juggling that we were doing. And by the time he showed up for his turn, he was in such pain that he was literally doubled over, kind of in the corner of the room, trying to kind of get himself pulled together enough to try this before we took off. And so one of the things that JJ has been phenomenally helpful with is in his role as child life specialist at Mott. He's able to help us kind of quantify and talk to the patients about what's working for them and what's not. And one of the tools that we use is what's called a pain score, right? And it's really simple. It just says, between 0 and 10, how much pain are you in? And for someone who's not in this environment, you might think, a pain score of 10, it's like, somebody like punched me in the head or like stepped on my toe or something. But like a pain score of 9 is really, really high. So that's.
What was your pain score before you did this?
It was like a 9.
What would you say it is now?
A 7.
What would you say it was while you were doing it?
Probably a 6.
So this is really important to us, right? Is that I think Minecraft, more than any other game, is something that you can really kind of escape into and kind of inhabit. Like Zach was saying, it's something where you can really build your own space according to kind of how you feel. So, some days that might mean you're lining up TNT and blowing up pigs all day, right? And that's a really important form of release. But other days it might be that you're building your living room. You haven't been home in 3 months, and you're spending some time recreating that. And I had one particular patient who was his brother was sort of coaching him through, like, where's the sofa? Like, the sofa's a little bit more over here, the TV's a little over here, and he was able to kind of like, work with his brother to recreate that space. And that was just a really important experience. So I'll throw it back to Zach to talk a little bit about what's going on with Go-Kart 2.0.
Yeah, so the big thing, as I was mentioning earlier, is, on the gamers outreach end of things, we're trying to figure out how can we make sure that games like Minecraft are accessible in the hospital environment, and also easy to manage for the staff members. Because we know not every hospital is going to have people that are very familiar with video games or very familiar with Minecraft, and so we're trying to create the tools that enable games to be accessible in the hospital environment, and to make sure that kids in the bedside environment are able to enjoy these activities just as much as kids who are able to sort of move around easily. So I mentioned some of the gaming carts we've been building earlier. This is a photo, actually a rendering, of a new version of the go-karts that we're creating. And I should clarify too, go-karts just stands for Gamers Outreach Carts. Seemed clever at the time, so we've kind of continued to go with it. And we've been building these things for hospitals, and when we started the program, it was just sort of a one-off passion project. And if any of you have been involved in like the startup space before, especially when it comes to building like hardware, the biggest challenge you have as you grow is scale. How do you create the same thing over and over and over again in a way that is cost-effective and easy for people to build and acquire? So originally, we were kind of working with medical companies to repurpose some of their existing products that they had for video games. And now we're at this point where we're actually trying to build the carts totally ourselves so that people will be able to, hopefully in the long run, build more of them and easily support hospitals of their preference. So we're really excited. This November, we're going to be kind of manufacturing our first batch of these new units. One of the cool things about what we do is we always invite gamers or people in the community. You don't necessarily have to be a gamer, but if you're a streamer or a YouTuber, or you're just somebody who says, hey, I would love to support some activities in my local hospital, we'll actually let people fundraise specifically for go-karts. So we've had a few instances where YouTubers have come forward and said, hey, I can reach out to my community and ask for donations and raise money to build a go-kart. And once they raise the funds, we'll construct the go-kart, we deliver it to the hospital, and then we'll invite them out to come see it and kind of learn about how it's going to be making an impact. So our first go-kart was donated to Mott in 2009, and thankfully it's still there. We don't really know what the lifespan is of these yet, because we haven't really had one break, thankfully. It might happen at some point. I guess it's inevitable, but we'll see. So when these things are built, they're kind of there for years. And one of the other reasons we're building this new version is we want to try to make something that's kind of relatively future-proof. Obviously, we never really know how people are going to be enjoying the medium of video games. Maybe it's virtual reality, maybe it's on the Xbox. maybe it's on the PC. And so we're trying to create something that can kind of generally, store most of the consoles and equipment as we know it today. But as you've seen, video games are used for all kinds of purposes. Sometimes they're just at a surface level entertaining. Other times they are used for very specific therapeutic purposes. That can mean incentivizing kids to exercise, through like what Nate was showing with the Minecraft buttons. Other times it can, be a distraction mechanism. And we've had other instances where sometimes it's just a way for parents to reconnect with their kids. I was talking to a dad the other day whose child was in the hospital for dialysis. And this kid had some type of blood disease where basically even at home he had various things in his body that prevented him from running around. And this dad was saying, I can't go out on a playground or toss a football around like normal parents, but my son and I can play Minecraft together. And so that's kind of how we bond. And he was literally saying that to me as like this kid and his brother were playing a video game in the background. So it was very obvious that it was making a difference for this child. And that's how he, was able to kind of, socialize and still have that parent relationship, that wasn't necessarily totally hindered by whatever was going on from a medical perspective. So that kind of leads into the last point, which is there's a ton of opportunity for you and us, really, fellow community gamers, to be getting involved in the hospital environment. One thing that Nate and JJ, if he was here, would say as well is this isn't something that is like closed off. We got started, I've never been in the hospital environment for a long period of time personally, but I was always a gamer. And so for me, when I recognized that, hey, gaming is something that I'm passionate about and I can use it in a way that's helping other people, just from a selfish perspective, it's very fulfilling. It's super fun. You get into the hospital, you realize you're making an impact, and you're able to kind of share the joy that we have as gamers with other people who maybe aren't able to have that same experience. And you kind of realize the importance of being involved in some type of philanthropic cause. It's just something I've kind of come to believe over the years is charity is one of those things, unless you have a personal connection or you make that initial leap of faith to get involved in the first place, most people are kind of inactive at some point. And that's totally okay. I think that's the starting point where everyone, at some point is there. But I think video games become an opportunity for us to take something that we are familiar with as gamers and leverage it in a way that connects with other people in a genuine way. And then through that, we're able to sort of get involved and make a really cool impact and a really cool difference.
Yeah, and keep in mind too that, it doesn't have to be super fancy, right? Like a lot of the times, even just showing up and, swapping the batteries out of an Xbox controller because the nurse, didn't know that that's what was wrong with the controller is a huge deal, and that's the difference between, a kid who's able to play Minecraft on a regular basis and not. So, whether it's just helping out and kind of getting the equipment set up, or helping to fund a go-kart, or swinging by and just playing some games, and teaching how to get to a particular potion or enchantment, like all those things make a huge difference.
I think too, there are so many hospitals across the country. If you just look online, quick search, like in terms of big building children's hospitals, like major facilities, there's around 200 children's hospitals across the US. And that doesn't include like individual clinics, or various like specialized sites. And so if any of you in the audience are interested in like getting involved at your local hospital, I would definitely encourage you to just give the hospital a call. Oftentimes people come to the hospital with sort of an idea of what they want to do in the first place, but in our experience, the more you can kind of talk to the hospital and kind of ask them like, hey, what would be beneficial, the more likely it is that you'll have an opportunity to sort of get involved. I think definitely, obviously, if you're able to kind of package something to them in a way and say, hey, I'm a huge video game enthusiast. I'm familiar that there are various people around the country that are bringing games into the hospital environment or are volunteering to help kids in this environment, and I would like to maybe do some of this here. If you're able to present that to them, that's, I think, going to help them wrap their minds around what you could be doing from a volunteer perspective. But certainly reaching out to the hospital, just looking up their contact information online, and being persistent in your communication is really how you can start getting involved and making a difference. And again, to Nate's point, that can start out super modestly. I think I was still in high school when we were starting Gamers Outreach, and like we had no idea we were going to be building these go-karts, and no intention of it becoming any type of program around the country. But it just sort of grew out of us getting really excited about what was going on at our local hospital. So similarly, you never know. You could get involved at your hospital, and who knows, maybe you're leading the digital activity program that gets built out at some facility. It ends up benefiting a lot of kids and families. So that's something that's really cool that, I think anyone, whether it's bringing in some games, rallying your community to come in and help kids at a hospital, or just volunteering, all of those things are definitely things that you can look into just by sort of going to your hospital's website and finding their contact information and reaching out and making sure that it's okay to get involved. With that, I'm going to leave this up and we're going to kind of move to like a question section, but real quick, this is just our Twitter information. If you have any questions later, we'll be available a little bit after the panel wraps, but if you're thinking about this online, you want to hit us up, feel free to drop a line over. And if you are interested in like building a go-kart or volunteering Gamers Outreach-wise, you can check out our website, gamersoutreach.org. If you look us up on Twitter, you'll see the URL. And that's a cool way that you can just kind of find out more information about some of the things that Gamers Outreach is doing. And then Nate, similarly, GameStart has a lot of really cool programs that you could look into, and they're starting to do more VR stuff in other hospitals even outside of Michigan. So unless you have anything.
No, so don't be afraid to reach out and ping us. Even if you're not sure where to begin or what you're, quite where you want to plug in, just get in touch and let us know. As we kind of run around and do more of these presentations, there are kind of other hospitals all over the place that are kind of asking, hey, we'd love to kind of do this, but is this something you can come do? And maybe we're not able to go to that particular hospital because it's too far away or whatever it is. But if we're able to kind of make connections and say, oh, this one person was really interested to kind of plug in, and it looks like they might be in your area. Let me put you guys together. So yeah, please get in touch if you're interested.
I should give a plug. I think I see Game Changers here, as well as Child's Play. So both of these guys are very West Coast based. Hello, is that Jake? I can't. Hey, what's up, man? We met like a year ago, but I was like, I think I've never. Yeah. So anyway, if you're going to get up, it'd be great if you gave a plug for what you guys are doing. But West Coast based a lot heavily. So right in our midst, Orange County, Game Changer is a group that delivers. I'll let you speak to it at some point if you want to, but they deliver a lot of really cool video game care packages to kids in hospitals around the country. I'm sure there's ways to get involved. So if you're in Orange County, here's something local to you right away that you might not have to reinvent the wheel. So, and Child's Play is here too. They're another big charity. You've probably heard of them. They deliver a lot of video games to different hospitals. So cool. It's awesome. If you guys want to ask questions, Jake, if you want to give a plug, or Eric, if you guys want to give a plug for what you're doing, feel free. We will open it up for conversation, and we'll go from there. Oh, we gotta hang on one second.
We got somebody coming down the aisle.
Yeah, you're gonna get some. We got some reinforcements.
I just want to say great job.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate that. Here we go. Yes.
These guys are amazing, both these organizations, both these guys, and we're really inspired to be partners with them and to bring gaming to hospitals together with Child's Play. And for us, we are Game Changer. We're a local Orange County charity. We're dedicated to using games in hospitals and delivering services. And with Child's Play, we just finished the Gamers Give Back tour where we visited 30 hospitals in a year. So we continue to develop programs. And again, just it's amazing what games mean. So for us, it's inspiring that everyone's here. So thank you.
Yeah.
But can I ask a question?
Of course, yeah, go for it.
First, of the different VR platforms, have you seen a difference in patients, adopting one easier engagement-wise? Is one easier than the other? Have you seen better or different therapeutic benefit from that?
Yeah, so it definitely has, it's most to do with the games, right? As with any kind of gaming platform, it's all about what experience are you trying to create. I think just to kind of rattle a few off, like the HTC Vive, Audio Shield is huge, right? So if you guys have heard of this game, it's a game where you have two controllers, and it's sort of like a Dance Dance Revolution kind of game, right? Where you've got music playing and you're kind of moving to the music and stuff like this. But
is that what the guy was playing on that video when you were streaming?
Yes.
That was a workout. Yeah.
So and that game is great because one, it has a huge library of music. So part of it is just the kids being able to check out whatever kind of music they want to hear, right? And then plugging that up. But it's physical in a way that doesn't push you, but you know, it's fun to kind of get into it. And so just as much as you're kind of ready to be active and kind of moving in this way, you will, right? You know, we have patients who kind of, you know, keep it in here, keep it tight, keep it close, right? We have other patients who just, they get up on their feet and they're kind of doing like this, right? So that one has been huge. You know, obviously Minecraft on the Oculus is like the #1 thing right now. We're really excited to try some more with like the multiplayer stuff with that. You know, so far it's just been kind of, you know, going through, you know, survival worlds by yourself. But like those are the really big ones. I mean, we try everything. There's one, there's sort of like a go-kart game on the Oculus that's really popular too.
That's awesome.
Have you had issues with motion sickness or like any? I think that's kind of like those. So too.
So only once.
Okay.
And it was with a quadriplegic patient who was having, JJ was controlling his character in Minecraft, and he was having JJ fly him up on top of a mountain and then jump off the mountain while he was staring at the ground.
Oh, that's
and
right.
he did that for he did that like 3 or 4 times, and then that was it. He needed a bucket, but that sort of doesn't count. He did that to himself, I think.
Yeah, and this is obvious for you too. I think that's something to be sensitive about, like for people in the audience. If you do get involved in your hospitals, like you'll definitely want to be mindful of the various circumstances that patients might be in, and you know, obviously if you're putting a VR headset on a kid, I think that's much more extensive. And Nate's been volunteering at our local hospital for a long time now, to where he's, you know, kind of able to do that pretty easily.
Yeah.
I have one more comment, one question. I just want to say, like, I mean, the carts that you've made are so awesome, and in hospitals, they play such a huge role, because sometimes, and apologize if you already said some of this, but some of the kids are in isolation, right? And they can't leave their hospital rooms. They can't go to the playroom. So even, you know, if we give a bunch of systems and stuff, you know, they aren't able to interact. They can't do that. So a lot of times we have to bring solutions to the rooms. And so that, I mean, I just commend you and your group for building that. I've seen it, you know, I think at CHLA and other hospitals, and it's awesome. So, I mean, if you could, like, if there's any stories you have or anything, I know, like, for me, anytime I go into a room and have like a one-on-one interaction, it's like the most meaningful kind of thing. So that was, I just want to again just say that it's really impressive what you've done.
Thanks.
And then one question for both of you, I guess. We know, I mean, Minecraft's obviously so popular around with everyone, right, in the world, but with hospitals and patients specifically, we see like there's other therapeutic benefit additionally, because it's like its own virtual world, right? And it kind of allows the patients to escape their reality and kind of escape the situation, right? And they forget they're in the hospital and they're in this virtual world that they can build, right? So I don't know, I mean, for me, I just, if you could either, you know, if you have any stories or any examples of, like, you know, are there games that are extra beneficial in Minecraft, like any mini games or anything you've seen, or I don't know, for us, I just know, like, being able to allow the patients to interact and have that freedom is just so amazing, and Minecraft continues to build and provide more therapeutic value that, and I don't think anyone can even imagine. So
I think like the ones that definitely stick with me personally the most are the ones where the kid has something very particular in mind, sort of from their life outside the hospital, that they want to kind of recreate and inhabit. Like that really sticks with me, and that's pretty common. But the stuff that's a little more fun is making there's a lot of parkour maps that we do. So one thing is, because we kind of, the way we work is we'll kind of go and work bedside with, you know, patient by patient. A lot of times the patients will kind of be building things and say, oh, like, you got to take this to Brittany down the hall and see if she can beat it or not, right? So you get to this point where you're kind of helping create this, like, sort of community. You know, I mean, they know each other, but they don't get to hang out all the time, right? So you're this interesting role of, like, liaison. When we get into multiplayer mode, like Hunger Games stuff is super popular, and then we do with the code, teaching kids how to code stuff. The way that works is they write some code that'll do something in particular, like shoot an exploding pig, or, you know, create a rain of arrows from the sky, or thunderbolts, or whatever. And then they'll sort of bind that code that they've written to a particular item in the world, and they can run around, and whenever they swing the item, the code happens, right? So we set up these tournaments where it's almost like a cross between, like, Hunger Games, where you're fighting each other, or like a Quidditch match, right? Where you've got your individual spells and you're using them on each other and things. So, yeah.
I think too, like, even on a general level, we had a kid in Atlanta who had been in the hospital for about 9 months, but his parents lived 2 hours away. And so throughout the week, they'd be gone because they had to work, obviously. And so this kid would kind of be by himself. And there's like a team of people that are like trying to make sure he keeps up with school, making sure, they're like encouraging him to get on Facebook because they're like, oh, you need to check in with your friends and make sure they're cool. And for him, and this is kind of unique to every hospital, but like he was able to get online in Atlanta Children's, thankfully, and like play games with friends. And so the ability to just like hop in Minecraft and like literally like see his buddy, but like as a virtual character, was like super helpful. Because it kind of, I think, to some degree, it's kind of in the same way like we all interact normally as well, where he was able to still maintain those relationships with friends outside the environment, and he didn't really feel like as much time had been passing as probably had gone by. So, I mean, there's a few stories like that, very similar. We could, but it's, I think that's where like the games, again, become this platform for where like they are able to fill in those gaps that get formed, by somebody being disconnected to some degree out of what's going on. And it's tough. It's tough for parents, tough for the kids. I mean, the parents having to Skype, every day to stay in touch. And he had a really good attitude about it, but like, it's got to be like really, pretty difficult. And I think the games make a big difference for sure.
Yeah. And one last thing, I'm excited to hear your question. I'm sorry. One last point is that like there's something about how Minecraft works where there is the way that you learn to play Minecraft is very social, right? There's no tutorial, there's no, right? So like the way that you figure this stuff out is by talking to people. And so for a patient who day in and day out has people coming into their environment and telling them, what their routine is going to be, what's happening in their own body, the idea that they could be, the complete expert in a particular domain and be able to tell the adults how this world works is a really big deal, right? So like, going back and just being like, yeah, tell me about this. Tell me how to get to the Ender Dragon. Tell me how to like create these potions, right? Like that's a really big thing too.
So I just want to thank you for having this session. I guess I would say a gamer mom, so I don't know a lot about gaming and Minecraft, but I know a lot about healthcare, so I was excited to see this panel, to come and to hear the work that you're doing, so thank you for that. So I work actually on the payer side of the healthcare industry, and I know there's a big focus on outcomes, not only patient satisfaction, but healthcare outcomes, and the way that we measure that are through research studies. So I just wondered, I'm hearing and so excited about all the anecdotal stories, but are there any efforts to kind of document some real, increase in patient satisfaction or even the healthcare outcomes? Do you know of any research that's going on? And maybe I'll open that up to the audience as well. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for the question. Do you want to?
Sure. So there are definitely folks that we're in touch with that are doing those kinds of things, and I'd say probably check in with Jake or Eric to see like the folks that they know of. And if you're interested to, I can connect you with JJ back from Mott. I think like my personal domain is much more kind of, trying to make this stuff work bedside and seeing what's possible. And then from that kind of storytelling and kind of creating precedents of like, here's how you take an Oculus Rift in, here's how you get it cleaned, here's the procedure, here's right. So that's kind of more my personal world. But I'm aware of folks that are definitely driving that direction.
I think on the Gamers Outreach end, we've had a couple, like we were actually working with some students at the University of Washington, and they did like a usability study on the go-karts. So it wasn't entirely hospital focused, but it was more about how the go-karts existed in the hospital. And they did this pretty extensive survey with like all the hospitals that we had delivered go-karts to, and just asking the staff, hey, what's your opinion of this? How's it functioning? How's it helping patients? And so we've got some like data that we've not published it really externally, just because it's written kind of for our understanding, but not necessarily like if you were to read through it, some things might not make sense. We probably, we honestly need to. It's just kind of a matter of like time and bandwidth, and like, cause I have a job and outside of Gamers Outreach now, and we need to, what's that? Yeah, seriously, we need to tap some interns for sure.
Yeah.
I'll put that on the list. But I think too, also, aside from the usability study that happened, a lot of our sort of thoughts have come from just observational conversations and things with all the hospital staff members who are, in some cases, are requesting the go-karts. And we've had instances where patients have come forward and raised money to build go-karts. We had a kid in Oakland Children's Hospital who was in the hospital for a long period of time. And at the time, the hospital only had like one go-kart. And so it was shared among many, many rooms. And each day there was a waiting list. And so this kid kind of, like would only get the car for 2 hours, and then he was kind of like, I want to play more games. Why are they taking it away from me? And so he got kind of frustrated and started knocking on doors for donations. Ended up raising like 15 grand. He's like 13 years old. Sent us an email and was like, hey, I've raised a bunch of money. I'd like to build more go-karts. And I didn't think it was real at first. We had to like call the hospital and his mom was like CC'd, so it was pretty funny. And sure enough, though, the hospital reached out and they're like, hey, we've got this patient who's on this fundraiser. So internally, we have seen kind of the validation of the program. And I think we need to make some efforts to like specifically talk about some of that stuff more and could be doing a better job of it.
It's super important, yeah.
And yeah, to Nate's point, there are definitely groups that are like doing more like general research about like the impact of games, in terms of like psychological effects and healthcare and things like that. And I think but definitely as Gamers Outreach, like could be doing more to kind of like talk about that side of things. And we sort of know internally like, hey, this is beneficial, if only because we're getting asked for it by the hospital sometimes. But I think doing more to like publicly make that known would be good.
Part of our, if we have a superpower, it's that we're super direct about supporting the patient experience, right? So like in the environment of the hospital, there's all this process for very good reason, right? It's super important that you really be on point with this stuff. It really matters a lot, like with the healthcare that's happening. But part of the reason why we're able to do what we do is that we just say, this is going to be awesome for this kid this afternoon. Let's make it happen, like regardless of everything else, right? So but then to be able to take kind of that attitude of like, pushing for something that we know is intuitively going to be awesome for a particular patient and saying, how do we represent this as a scalable process is, a mountain we haven't.
Especially even like healthcare professionals, right? Because I think it's something where like we see it every day, but
yeah.
Oh, sweet, there you go.
Cool.
So, how's it going? Sorry.
So first of all, I wanted to add my thanks for having this session. I'm a pediatrician and child and adolescent psychiatrist, and I saw this on the list of all the sessions. I'm like, that's the one I want to go to.
Welcome. Thanks for coming.
So my question, we have a little experience. I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we have a group that meets once a week doing social skills with kids with autism. And I just want to see what your experience with kids on the autistic spectrum was.
Yeah, so that's there's a big answer, right? Because there's a lot of different kinds of autism, right? So there's not one solution there, and there's not one experience that we've had. We do get feedback from a lot of parents who have told us that they find a fit in kind of the events and the classes that GameStart runs, in particular with Minecraft, that they haven't been able to find anywhere else. And I wish I could say that we were, in a better position to, what do you say, like, all of our staff isn't necessarily equipped to focus on that in particular all the time, if that makes sense, right? But at the same time, for the students who've been able to kind of come into the activities that we do run, it's been a really good experience. So yeah, more than happy to kind of follow up after this as well too, if you have more questions.
We had an instance as well where we were working with a parent, actually really early on in the years of Gamers Outreach. Before we were building the go-karts, we did a fundraiser for a local chapter of the Autism Society of America. And at the time, we were working with parents, again, kind of like anecdotal, observational, just conversations and things, but we're working with a parent whose child was a huge gamer, and throughout his normal school day was always having kind of like various challenges interacting socially with other kids, whether that was just because of what was going on or because other kids didn't really understand or weren't willing to take the time to socialize with him. And one thing this parent would tell us is like video games were that even playing field where when this kid was online and he was connecting with other kids at school, all that stuff went out the window, and everyone is socializing, they're playing the game, and that's where the primary method of communication is coming from. So from a social perspective, I think the games help create that playing field for everybody to kind of connect together in a way that takes away a lot of barriers that exist otherwise. And similarly, like in terms of focusing and being able to maybe accomplish like a particular task or pursue some objective, I think games have a kind of a weird way of making those things I don't want to say easier necessarily, but for some reason it's easier to accomplish certain goals in the game, and perhaps that can be parlayed into, teaching and education, and especially folks who might be challenged in that regard to some degree. I mean, even ADD, Nolan Bushnell, the creator of Atari, makes a really interesting point about how a lot of schools are diagnosing kids with ADD, and he questions, like, why is it that I can sit a kid in front of a video game and have their complete attention, yet when they're in school and working on something else, like, they're all over the place. And his argument, I don't want to go down this road necessarily in our panel, we don't have time for it, but his argument is that there's nothing wrong with the kids, your content is boring. And the games, he's able to create games that are like more engaging. So arguably, I mean, I don't know how true that is necessarily. Obviously, I'm sure there's all kinds of spectrums, but the point still is that there is something about games that is more engaging, I think at the least. Whether or not you agree with Nolan Bushnell that's again another rabbit hole to go down. But like, it was a bold statement I think that he made that I think is fascinating. So, in our experience, games have been very helpful in terms of actual like hard data and research. We haven't done a lot specifically with autism. We're just generally trying to serve a lot of the patients that are there. But great question, certainly really good. How's it going?
Hi. Like the other people who have spoken before me, I really appreciate you guys coming out. I appreciate your work, so thank you for that.
Thanks for coming out.
Appreciate it.
And like the pediatrician before me, I work in the pre-hospital healthcare environment, and when I saw this event, I knew I had to go to it.
Sweet.
Anyway, so one service that many ambulance services offer is critical care transport, where you're taking patients from one facility to the next. And a lot of these patients happen to be very sick kids who are in a lot of pain and discomfort. And to make matters worse, they're going to be confined, strapped into a gurney for hours on end, potentially. And I was wondering if maybe you would consider bringing your services to that environment. It might help these kids a lot to have something to take their minds off of the confinement and the pain and all that stuff.
Totally.
It would be a great idea, I think.
No, great insight and question as well. I think from the Gamers Irish perspective, the go-karts serve a very particular environment and a very particular purpose. I mean, specifically the way the cart is built is to kind of exist inside of a hospital environment where it's easily sort of mobile and rolled around. I think there are other tools in emergency care vehicles, ambulances and things that would probably be better suited, like, I mean, even an iPad, just because it's a little more secure. Well, I wouldn't say secure, but it's just a little, obviously, just the design is smaller, and it's not as difficult for an ambulance to monitor an iPad or for that to get lost in that environment. The go-karts exist, and the reason they're kind of the size and scale that they are is mainly because, in the hospital environment, anytime like technology gets donated, somebody has to kind of look over it, whether it's a game disc, whether it's iPads or laptops. At some point, someone has to create the tools and a process to kind of manage all that inventory. And in an ambulance, it's a lot easier because you can have a little shelf maybe on the wall that's like, oh, there's our iPad, it's missing, where'd it go? It's very obvious. Whereas in the hospital environment, I mean, we were in a hospital in Detroit, and somebody had taken a hard drive out of the Xbox, and nobody knew that it was gone. I don't know if it was stolen or if maybe a kid had just, hey, I saved my game, I'm gonna take it home with me. And so even, not to knock on Detroit, actually, I shouldn't. It's hometown, man, Michigan. But like even any hospital, like that's a big environment. And like there are all times where things sometimes just generally get lost, like innocently, like, hey, we were working with a bunch of patients and maybe something just got misplaced because it's a big environment. And the go-karts are
the place where my mind went when you asked about the kind of transporting people is the Samsung Gear VR, and the version of Minecraft that's on there is pretty solid, right? So that would be something that's super easy. You don't need like a separate display. You just have the gear right there, and maybe a controller ready. I think that'd be great. Yeah. So if that's something that you're interested in trying to put together or trying to do, definitely reach out, and we'll either try to help introduce you to somebody who can make that happen, or we're happy to kind of provide kind of stories and process that we use in the hospital with the Gear VR, and maybe that'll be helpful to put something together.
It might be something you could even try to help fundraise for too. If you're connected with some of those people, like if you were to create a fundraiser and like just get some of that stuff going. Literally, that's how it all starts, right? Is somebody has the idea, and then champions the cause internally, and then that stuff happens. So I go for it.
Super cool.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey there. I'm just wondering, for any of the 20 hospitals that y'all are currently in, did any of them raise concerns about logistical issues that for any of us here that might want to approach our local hospital to kind of prepare for how to sell it?
So we're kind of playing this game on easy mode because we have JJ, who we had a slide of earlier in our presentation. He's started as a child life specialist at Mott Children's Hospital, but has sort of created his own position, which he calls the digital media manager, right? So, and exactly what that is always kind of shifting and changing with, just with what's working, right? But really, the gist of it is like video games are awesome. This technology is amazing. Let's get it in. Let's figure out how to use it, right? So for us, we've been lucky in that he is able to handle a lot of the kind of red tape, bureaucracy, and frankly, he's able to take on a lot of the risk, right, associated with the things that we're trying to do. So when we bring in a new headset, and there is no document anywhere that describes exactly what's required of a nurse to properly clean this equipment between patients, we have to figure something out, right? And it's JJ who's been able to kind of help us make sense of that in a way that's responsible and safe, but also super effective for the kids.
I think also it might be worth, I don't know if we took the time to define child life specialist.
Yeah.
So we've kind of been dropping this staff role throughout our presentation. A lot of hospitals have these people called child life specialists, or they'll have a child life department. And a child life specialist is kind of like a pseudo parent in the hospital. So if a child is in the hospital, they are talking to nurses and doctors who are concerned with treatment. And the child life specialist is kind of the person who takes care of kids in between all that stuff. So they're the ones who are responsible for quality of life. They're the ones who are responsible for creating activities for kids and maybe educating kids about what's going on in the hospital environment and who all these people are that are interacting with them very regularly. So if you do look to get involved at your local hospital, a great place to start is a hospital's child life department. So when you do go and try to find the hospital's contact information, they might connect you with a foundation, they might connect you with like volunteer services, or there are various like entities that typically exist.
They will try to connect you with the IT department. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
You want to talk to people who are working with the kids on a day-to-day basis.
Specifically ask if they have a child life department or a child life specialist. And if you tell them that you're into video games, you're a video game enthusiast, that's kind of how we started with Gamers Outreach. I mean, we started just talking to the hospital. They connected us with our child life department. And then every time now when we do try to interact with the hospital, those are the first people we try to look towards. And thanks to a lot of things we've done at Mott, we're able to point to that as an example to say, hey, here's what we did at this hospital. It kind of worked there. We'd love to bring it to your environment. We don't want to force it on anybody. Like if the hospital's like, you know what, honestly, this isn't going to work for us, totally fine. Totally okay. We're okay with that. It hasn't happened yet, but if it were to, we're not trying to like weasel our way in or anything. So I think that's kind of a good place to start. And every hospital is unique and has their own staff and things like that, but you'll find it.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. I'm going to try and get through this without crying, so forgive me if I cry.
Oh boy, all the feels.
So my son passed away a couple weeks ago. I'm going to try and get through this. And he's here with 3 of his friends and his brother. And can you hear me?
You might need to turn the mic a little bit down. There you go.
Thank you. So they would Skype for a couple of hours every day with his friends from home and his brothers from home and do the Minecraft and play in, their worlds and stuff and in the hospital. And so it really does, I know you gave some examples, but it really does make a huge difference. It gives them, he'd put his headphones on and just be in that world and not worry about everything else is going on. But so I want to thank you for first the Minecraft, but so my question is, a lot of times the Wi-Fi in the hospitals do not always work well. He would play on his laptop.
Yeah.
How are the carts in different areas of the hospital? Do they need Wi-Fi, and is that going to be an issue?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for sharing your story too and getting up and talking to us about that. That's really powerful. The go-karts, it just kind of depends on the hospital. We'll always try to install games on the go-karts that are like tech-friendly, So when we, especially if we're delivering like an Xbox One, we'll create accounts for the hospital ahead of time, and we'll try to install games that would benefit from Wi-Fi, but don't necessarily need it. So Children's Los Angeles, actually, as an example, they have Wi-Fi in the hospital, but sometimes if a kid tries to connect, you know, an Xbox will like prompt for an update, and it kind of causes all sorts of problems. So the workaround we've kind of been finding right now is we'll just tell the hospital, like, make sure you try to avoid connecting to the Wi-Fi. And if a kid does, just disconnect it, and they should be able to play the games fine. But that's definitely like a tech challenge that's kind of unique to the current generation of consoles. And we've had some light conversations with Xbox about it, just like, hey, you know, it'd be nice if this wasn't a requirement for some of these games. So it depends. We don't really require Wi-Fi for the go-karts. You know, there's usually always some type of games that we can add on that don't need internet. But if the hospital does have Wi-Fi, if it's a strong signal especially, then it's obviously beneficial for patients, as we've seen. But it's very unique to each hospital. And some hospitals we work with totally have great internet connections. Some have very little, if any. So we try to create things that are as generally friendly as possible, you know, for the hospitals to have and the patients to enjoy. It just kind of depends. Kind of depends on the situation.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, hopefully?
Yeah, and what's the best way is it to contact you to try to do the fundraisers and stuff to get the carts in the hospital?
Yeah, specifically if you're interested in building a go-kart, you can go to gamersoutreach.org. So it's just our Twitter handle here on the left, just .org at the end. And there's information there. Just we have like a contact email on the website. You can just drop us a line, or even just hit me up before we leave too. I'll give you one of my cards, and you can we can exchange emails.
Okay. And to the gamers, if you do volunteer, it makes such a huge difference with the kids because most of the staff members don't necessarily know how to play Minecraft. So if you know how to play Minecraft and you volunteer, it would make a huge difference in the kids' lives.
Totally.
So, all right.
Thank you for coming out. I appreciate that. We have 15. We're actually 18 seconds over, so we're gonna probably cut out. No one's like taken the cane to us yet. But hey, thanks everybody for coming out. Enjoy the rest of MINECON, and we'll be out in the corner here if you have any other questions. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks.